She's sweet, she's salty, she's smart and craves chocolate every day. Here is your host, the Greek goddess of comedy, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sweet and Salty with Ellen Karis. I am your host, Ellen Karis, and I am so excited because we have a guest today. Very, very funny gentleman. I'm so excited because I love to interview people that I've never met before. I love to go into that territory, and because when there's a familiarity, you know some of the questions to ask, but as you know here, there's no script. We just go with the flow. So I came across a comic that I knew of his name, which is another thing that happens in the comedy world. It's like you'll know a name even if you haven't met the person. But something came about somebody was trying to pursue to do a show at a particular comedy club. And the response was, we only use Fred Rubino. So I started to find out about Fred Rubino, and he had all these videos, and I was laughing, and I was like, okay, he is definitely my kind of comic. So I DM'd him on Instagram, and here we are. So I'm so happy to have my guest, comedian Fred Rubino. Hi, Fred. We have no applause. This is so low production, but I will.
Not even canned.
I will do it.
Like Monty Python used to do.
So how are you? Thank you for doing this and taking your time. And I always appreciate it.
Well, to be honest, my manager said you're going to be on Ellen. And I was like, fantastic. Not fired. I'm only kidding. It's great to be here.
So, Fred, I read your bio, but I want to hear it from you. First of all, where are you from? Is it Staten Island, Brooklyn, or Jersey?
Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
Bensonhurst. Okay. Bensonhurst, very, very distinct accent. Okay. Even different from like Canarsie. So
it's not a Harvard accent. That's for sure.
And now, and then what's been your journey? Did you stay in Brooklyn? Did you move to Staten Island? Did you even go further west to Jersey?
Oh, I've been all over. What happened was I retired early from construction, and we moved from Bensonhurst a few years ago to Florida.
Oh.
After about 5 or 6 years in Florida, we got a place in Jersey now. So we're back and forth from Florida to Jersey, but mostly Florida.
Well, hang on a second. You realize you're living the dream, right? That is the East Coast dream, is to have a place, New York, New Jersey, Long Island, and go to Florida. So that's you won already.
I ain't complaining.
So where can I ask where in Florida?
Orlando.
So north. Sort of in the central.
So the hurricanes can't get us.
Was that the motivating factor to go to Orlando?
No, both my kids worked in Disney, and now only one works in Disney. The other one moved back to New York and works in New York. So that's why we're going back and forth. Otherwise, I would have just stayed in Florida.
Interesting. But you were very ahead of the curve because you did this before COVID, right? You made this decision prior to.
Just before, I would say about 2 years before COVID.
So
I got that.
You got your house for like $5, right? I mean, it was just so different than it is now.
Actually, the town I'm in, it's a little bit expensive.
Uh-huh.
So, but I'm not complaining. I love it. I love Florida. I love everything about it except the people, and and I love going back and forth up and down the East Coast and having a place to be when I'm up north.
So that is so funny. Truth be told, if my husband had his druthers, we would be your neighbor. He's ready. for a lot of reasons, which we can, we could certainly get into, but it really has changed over the years. It used to be the place where people went to die, to retire, to just do nothing. And, really before COVID, I mean, Miami started to become a business hub. Like the Bocas and all that, they have a whole social scene. And I have an uncle that moved to Naples 7 years ago. He had friends that live there. He golfs also, which if you golf, it's a great place for that. And obviously, if you like the sunshine most of the time, and then COVID, and now everything that's happened. And so you don't know this about me, but prior to my illustrious failed comedy career, I started out my life as an accountant. So I actually am a real CPA, even though I don't do taxes anymore, other than my own. And people don't get it. Okay. It's a big chunk of change when you're not paying state income tax. And that was one of the driving factors. Now it's a whole host of other things, of course.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you're a failed comic. I hope a lot more comics fail so that I will work. I'm hoping 99% of all comics fail in the near future. So
tell us how you got into this craziness. So you said you were in construction, but I feel like you've been in this a very long time.
Here's the thing. I was in construction. I always wanted to write a book. So I had this idea of a book in mind. And at the last second, I was working with some guy who gave me like an even more interesting story. So I was always interested in writing. I wrote the book. It got published. Didn't go anywhere. Didn't do anything. I almost broke through with that. But I like to write. So then after that, I said, you know what? I should try maybe writing comedy because I was always a funny guy. So I tried it. I went to a couple of open mics. They were horrible. Then I said, I'm not going to learn anything here. But I did open mics for like 6-7 months, maybe 10 months. And then I went to the Bringer show, which every comic knows. If you bring 3 people, they give you 5 to 8 minutes on stage. Did that for a couple of years. And I was very successful at it. But I was working construction. So if you were on this job, there were 20 guys on that job. Hey, let's go see Freddie. So people bringing 2 or 3 people. I'm bringing 15 people. So I was the darling of the Bringer shows. Freddie is so funny. You got on mine. Bring as many people. So I did that for a few years. And then I started getting opening spots for comics. And my big breakthrough was I sent a tape to Goomba Johnny from KTU, an Italian comic. Never met him before, but you just know that he's an all right guy. I sent a DVD. I said, what am I doing wrong? And he got right back to me. He looked at it. He says, I'll tell you what, you're too upfront with certain things. He molded my set. And after that, I just started getting gigs and I started getting hired. And then after a while, I got enough material to headline. And I've been headlining for the last 7-8 years.
So how long have you been in comedy in total?
I would say 13, 14 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were I thought you were in the 25, 30 year mark.
Most people my age are in it 35, 40 years.
Mm-hmm. So now when you say construction, what exactly did you do?
Electrical construction.
Oh, let me tell you something. I say this over and over and over again, even though, and I don't mean this in any way other than to just say the truth, even though I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, I have an MBA in finance, so I got CPA, I'm highly, educated and all this other stuff. I always say that, college is not for everybody, and nobody should feel discounted that they didn't go. What I think we need, and God, I wish I had some skill set, is people that can make things, build things, fix things. So I have a greater respect for an electrical contractor than I do for an estate attorney because there's a zillion of them and they never get their hands dirty and they charge way too much. So kudos to you. We definitely don't have enough of that. Was that like a family business?
No, actually, I joined. I got into an apprenticeship program, and I was through the union. So they do actually send you to college. So through the apprenticeship program, I got a 2-year degree in state college. So they actually, in order to complete the New York apprenticeship, you have to go to college. Mm-hmm. So we're like the only trade that you have to graduate college to become a union electrician. But I agree with you 100%. There's not enough plumbers. There's not enough car mechanics. There's not enough. And let me tell you something. There's been many times where as an electrician, I went into a place where these people were executives and I was making more money than them fixing their office. So it's not, you're not going to lose out by learning a trade, but learning a trade and being good at it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that trade school, and I don't know if they still have shop class and all this. I think that the implementation and putting money in schools in those departments, and could be for women too. It's not just for guys anymore. I think that would solve a lot of problems. I really do. I'm not just saying that because you said what you do. I mean, it frustrates me.
This country has a college crisis. A lot of people don't have $200,000, and that's not even a super expensive. Now there's 70,000 a year.
Right. Correct.
So, and sometimes your kid doesn't graduate in 4 years. I mean, the smart ones are the most expensive. Just the dumb ones are cheaper. I got to tell you. But I say educate as many Americans as humanly possible. I agree with that. But any state college should be free. And I don't mean 3,000, 2,500, free. All your books are free, everything free. If you want to go to the state college, if you have money, if you want to get a great education somewhere else, by all means pay. But if we could spend billions and billions and billions on the Sudan, on the Ukraine, we're giving hundreds of millions to China, our arch enemy. We're going to go to war with them soon. We're still giving them money. We can't say in every state, if your kid wants an education, go to the state college. It doesn't even make sense.
Right. We're talking to Fred Rubino, everybody. And these are the thoughts that Fred has that he puts out, which I love and which I was all over. I completely agree with you. I mean, as a person that thinks in money and finance all the time, every time, I'm just like, I'm like nuts. I am nuts at the waist. But anyway, I don't want to go too off topic. So your book, what was your book called, by the way? And what was it about?
My book was, I believe it was published in 2008, maybe. It was called Nazi Princess. And it was about finding the children of Joseph Goebbels alive in New York City. And the story goes that Hitler kills himself in the bunker at the end of World War II.
Right.
And right before that, Goebbels poisons all 5 of his children. And then him and his wife poison themselves and they're dead. And there's pictures of them, footage of them dead. And I come across someone who claims to be one of Joseph Goebbels' his youngest daughter that was smuggled out, and they were body doubles. And I make a case in the book that even in the pictures, they don't actually match up to who these kids really were. And it was known at the end of World War II that there were Hitler doubles found dead, like 2 other Hitler doubles found dead, that this was a common practice of doubles. So I don't see Joseph Goebbels poisoning all of his kids, poisoning his whole family, when he could have easily gotten out. There's a figure that tens of thousands of high-ranking Nazis got out of Germany at the end of the war. Why wouldn't he?
Right.
The book, and this is how close. Remember the show, A Current Affair?
Yes, of course. Uh-huh.
So they used to do exposés, so they contacted me about the book and they said, could you come down? So I went down, they interviewed me. They said, we love this. We're going to do a 2-part section on finding this woman, and we're going to put her all over the news, and you're going to blow up. I was like, wow, that's great. So they hired investigators. They thought they found her. They got back to me. I said, that's not her. And they went, okay, by next week, we will have her, because they were going through all kinds of records that only private investigators could get through. And 2 days before they were just going to get her and I was going to be all over Current Affair, show got canceled.
And that show was on for a really long time.
It was like the second time. Like the first time it was a big hit. Then it came back for like a year.
You know who started on that? I believe Bill O'Reilly, right? That was...
I don't remember. I think that was Maury Povich.
Maury Povich? Okay.
And it was on Channel 9, and it got canceled. I was going to sign with a bigger publisher, and they were going to re-release it in Barnes and it was. So I was 2 days away from being a successful writer.
Oh my God, that is a crazy, crazy story. Wow. And for the kids listening, A Current Affair was one of the first shows. Like we had what they called the rags, right? We had, when people read newspapers, the Star, the Inquirer, the Globe, there was a few other, ones. I mean, even before like a People magazine came out, but Current Affair was really one of the first shows that did that tabloid type of a show.
But they investigate too. They would investigate.
Right.
That's why it was so interesting. They would take a topic and really go into it and expose stuff. And so that was the lore of it.
Wow, that's amazing. So after that experience and disappointment, obviously, because I mean, like right on the edge. So then what did you decide to do? So then you decided to start to write. That's when you decided to write comedy, or you were doing that in conjunction?
That's when I started to write. I was going to write another book that was associated with construction. And I was like, you know what? I can't do that again. And so maybe I'll write that one day. But I had a good story with construction. But then I said, let me see if I could write comedy. So I wrote a few things. I was like, that's okay. And then I went to see. My son bought me tickets to see Jerry Seinfeld, not performing. He was being interviewed. I forget the guy's name. He's an old interviewer. I forget his name. Anyway, it was at John Jay College in New York. And it was just them sitting on stage and interviewing him. So it was fun. And then Jerry Seinfeld says, if you think you could write, tells to the audience, and if you think you have the courage to get up there and your stuff you write is good, give it a try. So I turned to my son. I said, I'm going to give it a try. And so here I am.
Wow. That's amazing. You talked about Goomba Johnny before, so I know him as well. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I know him as well. As a matter of fact, we have a sort of a mutual friend situation, not from the comedy universe, somebody that he grew up with. And He's a really nice guy. He's been around forever. I used to listen to him too on the radio. Does comedy, and I have to tell you, you're obviously you're Italian. Are you 100% Italian?
Sicilian.
Sicilian. Excuse me. I understand.
Don't make that mistake again.
I'm Greek, and my mother's side is from Cyprus. So they go Cypriot. So I get it. And to top it all off, my husband has some business dealings with somebody that has an olive oil company. And I'm going to say 2017, we went to Sicily. And it was amazing, beautiful. Aside from the fact that I could not stop eating the food. And I wouldn't say that I'm an adventurous eater. I mean, I'm a decent eater. It's not like I have a sister that eats 4 things, like I'm not that, to that degree, of course, but I don't eat all kinds of fish or whatever. I was inhaling because they hosted it. And so it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the most part. And although it was very funny, I remember the coffee, because they all drink espresso, and they it's in a cup, this big, an inch wide. And I'm like, and I would order 3 at the same time. I'm like Americano, I know, but I can't, this is like a sip for me. So I just was eating. My husband's like, who are you? You never eat things that have, claws. I'm like, this is so good. So fresh right out of the water. Oh my God. And the people, I love them. And you know what? I love the mentality. I really do. It's like, don't go against the family. It's not just a thing from The Godfather. I mean, again, I'm Greek. I'm all about loyalty and, and protecting my family and not taking any horse shit and, getting up in somebody's face when they're being wrong. And so I get it. I get it. But what I was driving at was that I say this, although you're probably not going to feel this way, but I wish I were Italian, because I feel like the Italian comics, and there's a lot of them. The good news is for you, there's a lot of work for Italian comics. The bad news for you is there's a lot of Italian comics. So,
right.
It's a fine line. But as far as Greek goes, I do Greek. I have a mainstream act, obviously a regular act like you do. And then I have one that's special for the Greeks, which I kind of blend. I say some Greek words, this and that. I normally do them at churches. So it's squeaky clean. And once in a while, if it's outside of a church, I'll let it rip a little bit. Not that I'm filthy dirty, but you know what I'm saying? I'll curse. But it's not the same population. And quite frankly, if there were as many, and this would work for Italians, as many Italians or Greeks as there were Indians, we would have careers like Russell Peters. Those people come out like nobody's business, and there's a bazillion of them. So, but Goomba, I know he's in that pool, as you are. There's a whole bunch, but God bless you guys. I mean, they're still churning out the work.
Well, you know what the key is? The key is to write your own stuff. Now, we all know as comics, there's hacks out there. You go to a show, you see someone doing 15 minutes of all stuff that you've heard before, and you're like, why is this person even hired? So when you write your own stuff, you could have 50 Italian comics. You might have the same topics, but it's going to be this, different jokes. Me and Mike Marino just co-headlined a show at the Carteret. He did 45 minutes. I did 45 minutes, all Italian humor. But because he writes his own stuff and I write my own, there was no, you didn't even think about it, because he's saying Italian stuff that related to him. And same thing with Goomba Johnny and a lot of people. But then you get the Italian comics that doing stuff like, okay, that was Pat Cooper's album. I know that. I grew up listening to that. You just did it word for word. Okay, that's the Maniscalco's. I see people doing. I seen a comic doing Maniscalco's bit when he answers the doorbell, like in the old days.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that bit. How do you have the balls to get up there and do that bit? It's great. And you know what it is? I blame the clubs. The club owner should go right up to that person and go, you'll never play here again. I hire people to write their own jokes. And I've even had people open for me that copied people's jokes. And I've gotten blowback from it, from people saying, hey, I come to see you. I spend my money. It cost us $80, me and my wife. I didn't have to hear 20 minutes of Roseanne Barr's first album.
Right.
You're right.
Well, Mike Marino, I don't know well, but I worked with him last year. Are you ready for this? Was it last week, 2020 or 2021? I think it was 2021. At Frank E. Campbell Funeral Home. So the funeral home.
He killed there.
He killed a lot of people. It's a beautiful townhouse. God knows how much that real estate is worth on 81st and Madison. A lot of famous people have had their wakes there. Judy Garland, Duke Ellington, Jackie Onassis. And but it's beautiful inside, and they decided to put together a comedy. Actually, I think what they were doing was during COVID, they were having like jazz nights and stuff. So I want to give her credit because it was actually a comic by the name, you might probably know her, Elise DeLucci. And she lives on the Upper East Side, and she was walking by one day and she went in and she approached them. And so she really was the one that put it together. And I want to give her the kudos. But anyway, Mike Marino was on the show. And I had met Mike over 15 years ago in LA. He ran a room in like Toluca Lake or something. and I met him there. But I have to say, and if anybody has not seen it, after you watch some of Fred's videos, is if you Google Mike Marino and you Google Osama bin Laden, one of the funniest bits on the planet that I've watched 1,000 million times. Like, again, that's my humor. He did it on Byron Allen's show.
That bit him.
It's so funny. And you know what? God, I wish it were true. I wish it were true. So anyway, so that's great. So talk about where you perform. Like, what about like you're a storyteller, and there's probably so many experiences that you've had in your head. Like, have you thought about, and I know it's hard, I'm not saying it's easy, but you're such a natural writer, about maybe creating a TV show, a pilot, a movie, collaborating with somebody?
Well, I don't have a manager or an agent. So that's what you need. If you don't have that, I don't think that's going to happen. Having said that, I do have an idea for a sitcom. I think it's very original. I do, but I had a manager once. He was the same manager as another comic I won't mention, that nobody talks to anymore because he's the biggest hack. So the guy, my manager too, and he says, listen, if you have any ideas, you give it to me. I'll pitch them. I pitched it. He turned around and pitched it for the other comic.
Oh my God.
He didn't get it because it didn't make sense with the other comic. I wrote it to pertain to me and the way I write.
Right.
So, and I also have a script that I wrote for a movie that, you know what I do? And I tell people this. If you're in show business, any aspect of show business, it doesn't have to be just comedy. It could be acting. It could be anything. And if you have any writing skills, try and write a script. Because God forbid, you're in a room one day and that guy is in there who has the ability to sell your script or to do something with it, 1 in a million, and you don't have something to give him.
Right.
And you cheated yourself. At least I have it. Listen, if it never goes anywhere, that's okay. I still wrote a script. But if I'm ever in a room and in walks in whoever, and they say, man, I'm dying to get a script. I would love to do something. At least I have something. Because if you miss, that's a 1 in a million chance. And if you miss that, you missed it. So why not just have that? That's it. And I tell people to do that. Go home. It might take you a year, and it doesn't have to be in the greatest format, but write something out in case somebody asks you. And in fact, that manager that I'll talk about with that comic, he was approached by Sony, and they were like, hey, we're looking for a new kind of sitcom. What do you got? And he was like, whatever you want to put me in. And they were like, wrong answer. We don't want to put you in anything. We're trying to buy someone's idea, someone's talent.
Right.
So, and I seen that and I said, every comic should have some kind of a sitcom, even if it's one page that it's about, that if someone approaches them out of the blue, your uncle brings in his friend, he's MGM, co-executive. Hey, do you have any ideas? At least you have it.
I agree with that 1,000%. And it's harder than you realize, which gives you an appreciation for like the fact that even when you turn your TV on, and I still turn a TV on, I don't like to watch on my laptop, that, how that show came to be, especially if it has multiple seasons. It's such a hard process. So back in 2017,
I agree with you with that. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying anybody could write one.
Right, correct.
90% of the people who will have it probably will suck and is not a good idea. Right. But at least you had it and had the chance.
Right.
Me, if I have it, I have the script, I have an idea, I hand it to the guy goes, not what I'm looking for. Okay, I walk away with it saying, at least I was in the game.
Right.
I'm satisfied.
Right. Do me a favor, just stay still, because you're getting blurry, kind of in and out. So if we put this on YouTube, yeah. So I wrote a sitcom. I had an idea for a sitcom. I actually wrote a lot of characters, and I wrote like 5 seasons. So I didn't write, let me rephrase that. I wrote the first season, like how each episode that I thought would go. And then for seasons 2 to 5, I wrote the synopsis of how I think, to go. And then having like 5 seasons and then an ending. But what you just said is absolutely correct. I did show it to a few people, somebody knew somebody kind of thing. It didn't go anywhere, obviously, but I always have it in my back pocket. But I'm glad that you said that, because I would love to revisit it and, tweak it a little bit. Of course, I wrote it for me to be in it, but at this point, I think if somebody else was in it, because the other thing too is like, it's great, listen, what happened like with a Ray Romano was amazing. And it wound up that Ray Romano has really turned out to be quite the actor. I mean, he's doing, a lot of dramatics, but some of the time, or most of the time, it's they want a star attached to it, because that will attract people as well. So you have to sort of like be like, okay, well, maybe I can't do it, but it's my idea, and I could still be involved. I mean, at this point in my life, I am totally fine being behind the camera. I'm not aging gracefully, and I know it, so it's totally fine by me.
Right. So it was, I was going to be in it, but I was 45.
Right.
That was a while ago, so now I'm not, I can't play that role anymore.
Right.
But like you said, take it,
Right.
run with it, do whatever you want with it. But at least, like you said, it's in your back pocket.
Yeah. So tell us, so I wanted to know, by the way, speaking of just Florida, so what is the comedy situation in Florida? I mean, it's so different. I know there's a lot of, obviously, the private homes, the communities and stuff, but what's it like?
Well, there's like a circuit here, and there's like 5 to 6 clubs. Like I said, I don't have a manager, I don't have an agent, so it's hard for me because these clubs, they have their people, they come around once a year.
Yep.
For you to break into that, and if you weren't on TV, some of them have out now told me, if you have no TV credits, don't want to talk to you. And I even talked to people when I went to that club. So-and-so from this show was on. We walked out. It was horrible, but they don't care because it's the name. So
Right.
It's very odd. But having said that, I have broken into like 4 or 5 of the clubs in Florida. So I do those. There's other ones that, like I said, I'm working on them and I'm trying to get in. And then there's the ones with like the 55 and over communities.
Right. That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
So that's good. But what happens that is like some people, like you'll have someone in charge who books it. And if you're not in with that person, you don't get those bookings. And that's fine. I've done a few of them and they were very successful. Every time I did it, people were asking the person, can we get him back? Or we get him back? Right. And most of them have Alzheimer's, so they don't realize any of the jokes. They don't remember them. So I could just say the same set over and over. They don't remember. But some of them I won't do because it's too old. It's too clean. They want the mildest of humor. They're still in the 1940s when they go, how much do you get? What are you paying? I bought a car for that in 1940. And I'm not for you.
Right. I see some of the Florida comics working. One of the clubs that I know that you are in, because I'd seen it on your schedule, that I love is Off the Hook.
Yes,
it's in Naples, and so like I said, my husband wants to move there. My uncle lives in Naples, so I did a couple of guest spots. And then last year when I went down, I did, 15, 20 minutes. He paid me. It was literally like right down the road from where my uncle lives. It's great. I love the crowds down there, my kind of people. And man, good for you. I mean, you
meet everyone from New York there. Right. When I play this Saturday, I'll be at the Boca Black Box. Same thing, Boca there. Another place in Port Charlotte, Fasani's. There's a couple of clubs around the Orlando area I'm doing. As soon as I get outside, I shake people's hand. Where are you from? Brooklyn. Oh, I was from down the block.
Right.
You meet very few native Floridians at these shows. They're all from up north, wanting to hear you say those jokes again.
I had a conversation with Al Martin, who owns Broadway Comedy Club. You know Al, right? And he spends a lot of time in Florida, at least 6 months. I know Al. We, obviously too for tax purposes, which I don't blame him. So I was having a conversation not that long ago, and I'm like, my husband wants to move there, this and that. I miss New York. He goes, Ellen, you don't understand. Everybody here is from New York. Like there's like nothing to miss. He's like, you hear the same people.
It's so true. I do a lot of jokes on stage in Florida about that. Uh-huh. I do a whole bit about it, how that we're all there. We're all, we miss the food and all that, but we're all there. And that's the God's honest truth. Now, when I play like in Orlando area, then you'll get some people who grew up in Florida.
Right.
But the coast,
who
has a decent amount of money has moved, all New York, New Jersey, Boston.
Yeah. So do you drive down up and down the East Coast? Do you do any cruises? And how many times do you come up to Jersey to do shows? You just said you did Carteret, a theater in Carteret.
Right. I came up. I did Carteret. Yeah, I fly all over the place.
Uh-huh.
I got, June I'll be in Chicago. I got Kansas City coming up in a couple of months.
Are those all like private? Like private?
Oh no, the club.
Clubs? Uh-huh.
A Club Arcada in Chicago. I fly. There's no way. My criteria is 4 hours.
Yeah.
If I want to drive for 4 hours, I either say no,
Right.
which more than half of the times I just say no. Too
Right.
far, sorry. Or I fly.
Right. So people come and seek you out. You said you have no agent, you have no manager. You do your own things, or people have seen your videos, or they saw you someplace and they hired, like, Chicago. Like, how did that all happen?
Well, like I said, I have a big social media presence. So people come across my videos. And also, if the club takes a chance and says, you know what, you send them some stuff and they go, you know what, okay. If they put your video out to the people, like, they have a clientele.
Right.
If they look, oh man, I saw your video, I figured I'd come. So you need to be on social media. And Chicago, I have to say 99.9% of every club I ever played asked me back.
Mhm.
And the majority of people who come to see me and everywhere I play have seen me before.
Mhm.
They always come back. So I'm doing something right. And part of that is also that I'll add one joke a month to my set.
Mhm.
So if they haven't seen me in 12 months, they come out and they go, wow, there's 15, 20 minutes of new stuff. I just saw you last year. Then that's part of your allure, if you will. But yeah, I'm all over the place. And the problem is getting in. Once you get in, they see, you're doing a good job. They rebook you.
I always tell people the on stage part is the easy part. It's the getting the work. That's the hard part. I spend more of my time looking, hunting, pecking, emailing, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I can't fucking stand it anymore. That part, I'm about to lose my mind. I'm about to go work at H&R Block. Like, I can't stand it. And then it gets very frustrating, because then they see, when you get booked, it's like, oh, wow, I had no idea. Or wow, I didn't, so I'm having a little bit of an issue with the Greek community. I'm finding like a little resistance to being a female comic. And I don't say things like that unless I really feel it. I don't say like, oh, because I'm a woman. And like, if I really see it's happening, and I do like an hour and 15 minutes for when I do the Greek shows and stuff like that. But I'm finding I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's very hard not to get into your head, when you're capable, you've worked hard, I've worked hard to get to a certain place. And tell me if you agree, for me, it's not about like, I don't want to be famous. Like, ugh, like I'm kind of a private person, which I know sounds really weird, when you're up there, but but I don't also tell everything that's going on in my life. And not everything is about my life. But I want to make a living, and be a working, yes, I am a working comic. Yes, I fall into that category, but you got to pay the bills. And when someone's like, oh yeah, or maybe next year, no. My MasterCard is due on the 20th. Like I don't have next year to wait for you and you cockamamie me board meeting and your approval and all this other shit. It's hard. It's very, people don't realize it.
Especially it's frustrating when you see people, and in general, that you've been on shows with, you've seen them do horrible, you've seen that they're just not that great, and they're working, and you're like,
yeah,
what is going on in this world? Yeah. I've had comics call me up and go, how are you sitting home on the weekend?
Right.
You're like, you're you're crushing it in every place. How are you home? I said, I can't figure this business out. And a lot of it is because people have, these managers and stuff. And also it's a lot of people, they'll perform for $20 or $30.
Right. I think there's an element of that, definitely, where you and I would say no to the money. And then it's sort of like a buddy system, or it's a, hey, I'll drive you and open for you. And I mean, there's a lot of comedy shows on Long Island, like a ton. And I'm just like, first of all, forgetting about the comic part of it, who's going? I know, some shows clearly, but like, that's a lot of shows of one type of a show. We're still talking about suburbia. I just find it, I don't know. It's just something just doesn't feel right or whatnot, but it's just very weird. And I'm not begrudging anybody, it's not sour grapes. It's just like, what's happening? Why, and how come I'm not being asked to be on it when I've worked with these people and they know what I do and all this stuff. So the
Long Island comedy scene has a very bad reputation. Number one, you see 20 shows on the weekend. They're in a coffee shop. There's 8 people. They show you the 8 people, packed house tonight. And you're like, what? And then they ask you and you go, I never want to be on these shows again. It's horrible. And then the clubs, it's the same 5 comics that play those clubs. It's just an endless loop of those 5 comics. They call the Long Island comedy clubs 5 guys. The 5 guys of comedy, because that's all you see in that club. And you're like, okay, you go to that club twice a year. You're going to see the same people doing the same jokes. Don't you even call up the place and say, when are you getting somebody else, please?
Yeah. And again, I'm not here to put anybody down. It's just again, it's a visual of what I see. And I'm frustrated because I want to work too. And there's no logic. There's no, there's none of that. So I remember, many years ago when I was doing bringer shows or like bar shows here in the city, and I don't go out like I did in the beginning. In the beginning, I used to work during the day, go out at night. I'm not doing I don't do any of that. But I am up early and I am, working on my career or writing something or, doing something for it. So I find that, much more productive than, going to do a bar show in Brooklyn, and not your Brooklyn, like another Brooklyn, like a Brooklyn we're not a part of.
I know. Believe me, I know.
So I get that, but it just gets very frustrating that, our schedules aren't filled and we are, more and more, more than competent. We know what we can do. We know what we're capable of. So, but anyway, speaking of Brooklyn and speaking of New York, so I want to touch upon this as well. So I grew up here my whole life. You grew up in Brooklyn. It's very painful for me to see what's happened to this great city. And, you did what a lot of people did, except you did it before a lot of people decided to do it. What's your feeling when you come back here? And I don't know how much you come back to the city. I know you go to Jersey, I mean, a little bit of that has changed as well, so what's your viewpoint on that?
When I grew up, I lived in Bensonhurst, and the older guys, like the parents, and you would say, hey, where did you grow up? They were like, we grew up in East Flatbush or so. And you were like, what? That's the worst neighborhood. And they would go, not when we were kids. We would play outside. It was all Italian. And that registered in my head that one day your neighborhood could do that. And there's no coming back. There's no holding on. So when my neighborhood all of a sudden was flooded with Asians who weren't bad because they're good family-oriented people, and you never have to worry about 5 Asian kids walking down the block. Maybe but they'll help you balance your checkbook. That's the only thing. But then the Mexican immigrants and the Guatemalan immigrants came. They were drunk all over, and it was obvious that the police were doing nothing. In fact, the last straw was the guy across the street, like it was during the feast a block away. He had a can of beer in front of his house. Undercover cops came by. They ticketed him. They arrested him. He didn't have ID. He goes, I'll go right in the house and get the ID. Sorry. And they broke. On the corner, there's a park. Two drunken guys, Mexican guys, peeing, pants down. There's a kid's playground right there with a bottle of booze. Two cop cars pull up. They pour out the booze. They say, pull up your pants. Get out of here. So now I'm saying to myself, okay, this neighborhood's getting worse and worse. Now there's car break-ins. Now there's house break-ins. And I could see that the police are being told, do not arrest them. I'm out. I can't have my kids coming home late in that kind of environment. I can't have people, there's screwdriver marks on my front door. I can't. I'm not going to go to jail for killing one of them. Just going to go. Right. And that's the lesson I learned from when I was a kid from the older people. Once the neighborhood starts to go, if you hold on, you're trapped and you're living in a place that you really don't want to be. So tell your husband to get to Naples as soon as he can. There's no time like now.
I'm so disgusted with what has gone on. It started with de Blasio. I've been very vocal about I don't give a shit. Okay. Guy, it is just a loathing maggot. He hates everybody, including himself. I mean, I can't stand him. He was, whether he was planted, he's got somebody paid him. I mean, the guy was always a commie, right? I mean, when you go to
right.
a honeymoon to Cuba, you're not exactly the most pro-American person. And it started with him, with his bullshit and the schools. And I have two nieces. Now they're getting older, thank God. But, in the public school system, I know all about that crap and some of that shit that's gone on. And the priorities of what they're teaching the kids, and now it's between the bike lanes, and I'm a walker, like I will walk every place. The bike lanes, the weed, I hate pot. I don't care. You could smoke it, you could OD on it, you could shove it. I don't care. But the fact that it's out in the open, and people are smoking, and I have to go through a cloud of smoke to get to, the gym, or nobody cares about me. What about kids in strollers going through a cloud of smoke, all this stuff? It's become a ghetto. And people go, no. Don't tell me that legalizing weed doesn't come with increasing crime. Bullshit. I call bullshit on all of it. So there's that. Then they got the sheds from COVID. So de Blasio loved this because it looks like shantytown, and that's what he wants. He wanted it to be a slum, and so then we got Eric Adams. Maybe he's a scintilla better. Maybe the only thing better about Eric Adams is he's a little bit more personable. Not that matters to me, but I'm just saying, like, if I had to pay him any kind of a compliment. But the same, actually, the thing with Adams is he will say whatever to whoever the crowd is. So he panders to the crowd, where de Blasio didn't do that. He just, he just gave you his fucking rhetoric. Never, they talked about mental illness, $1 billion to the wife, Thrive. Where is it? Where's the audit? I'll volunteer. I was an auditor. I will volunteer to do the audit for free. Where's the money? So it just goes on and on and on. When someone like me who loves it here, I love the theater, I love the convenience. I hate, I drive, but I hate it, but I do it, of course. All this, it's not even walkable anymore. Now they're talking about congestion pricing. I mean, it's like it's like they want to ruin it on purpose. So yeah, it's day by day they chip away at, you know, people like me. And you know, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, leave the tax. You're not going to have a tax base. The people that are going to be left here aren't going to be paying for any of the programs or any pensions, anything. So go ahead.
Well, I think they took the model from Chicago, and they just like what you just touched on. As soon as you saw that de Blasio's wife stole $850 million and didn't have to answer one question or be accountable for it, it just showed that they could do anything they want. The city's wide open. Do whatever you want. You could break the law as an official. And that, I believe, that single moment opened the floodgates to tell all the Democrats all over the country, do what you want. It's wide open. There's no repercussions at all. And that's the worst. And ever since then, everything downhill. Yeah. Crime is rampant. It's disgusting now, New York. It's disgusting.
It's dirty. It smells of weed. The subway. So here they tell you to take public transportation, right? Encourage you to take public transportation, which, by the way, my response to that is nobody takes the subway more than me. Okay. So don't tell me about my carbon footprint. All right. I've been taking the subway my entire life. So I don't want to hear that bullshit. Meanwhile, all the hypocrites are in an Uber or in a jet, or it's so lopsided and it's so bad. And just to fast forward or to the present, to say the whole thing with Florida, I mean, look, you know, sometimes I go down to see my uncle. Naples is nice and whatever, but I get a little antsy, you know, like it's like a little slow. It's a little boring. It's, you know, how many times are we going to go to Publix? You know, that's like the big excitement, not a lot of theater, you know, but then again, it's like, I want to be able to walk outside and smell fresh air. Like that's my fucking right as an American, as a tax-paying American. So it's bad. It's bad. But I have a feeling you and I could talk for hours on this topic. But I just wanted to, you know, ask you, because you made the move, but you still come up here and you see it. You see the deterioration.
I see it 100%, and it's terrible, and it just gets worse every time. Every year it gets worse. It's not going to get better anytime soon. So I would tell people, if you can, leave, because it's not going to get better. And you don't want your children on the subway. You don't want your children walking the streets of New York City, because even if they defend themselves, like we just saw in the news recently, you're still in trouble. You're still in trouble. God bless that Marine.
Right.
God bless that guy. He's a New York hero. There should be a GoFundMe. That guy should be filthy rich for doing.
Yeah, but you know what? The pressures from the powers that be are going to get to brag. I mean, they released him at the get-go. And now there'll be an investigation. And look, I'm not saying that, you know, they shouldn't do a thorough investigation. I'm all for that. You want to be fair. But at the end of the day, we know what happened. And if I were on that subway, which I could have easily have been on, and that all happened, and that guy saved my life. So what should we wait? We should wait for that guy to kill somebody. Is that it? I mean,
that's what listen,
right.
I said this not too long ago on Facebook. I said, the guy who got choked out, he was wanted for bashing a 62 or 67-year-old woman's face in on the subway. That he's been wanted for 1.5 to 2 years. You know, he's been hiding on Broadway, dancing as Michael Jackson in front of 50 cops every night.
Right.
Why wasn't he picked up? They knew where he was. He has 40 prior arrests. He's wanted for assaulting a woman, and they're not just not locking him up. They're just putting him out there. Now somebody actually stops him because he assaulted 2 people on that train. That's what they don't tell you. Those people, he already cracked 2 women because he's a predator on women. And that's when the Marine got up and restrained him.
Right. Well,
So-
it doesn't help that the media, cuts out pertinent information and
Exactly.
twist it. But all right, listen, let's tell us where we can find you. Give us your social media, where you're going to be, all that stuff, all that good stuff.
Find Facebook, just type in Fred Rubino. I have 2 pages. One page is full. The other one's my fan page. I am live on Facebook 3 times a week. I do a cooking show on Facebook. I do question and answer. I do a podcast. Also, you could go to fredrubino.com and see where I'm playing. You could usually get tickets right from fredrubino.com. You'll click on the number and you could call the club. And I'm all over the East Coast and soon to be in Kansas City, probably next fall. So that's it. I hope to see people at my shows. This is a great podcast.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming on. You're amazing. Fred Rubino, and that's Rubino, who's ever listening. And I am Ellen Karis. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Greek Chick Comic, Ellen Karis Facebook, Greek Goddess of Comedy. Go to my website, ellenkaris.com, for this podcast and all the other ones that we've done for 9 seasons. Sweet and salty. That's who we are. And thank you, everybody. Till next time. Bye.